It's Monday, the 10th of November, and if we learned anything this week, it's that South Africa thrives under adversity. Let's start the show. Hello and welcome back. You're watching Bit of an Animal, the South African Rugby Union focused podcast here on the Global Gainlines YouTube channel. I've got the full bomb squad with me, so let's get stuck in. First topic of the week, ladies and gentlemen. South Africa prevail against France. An incredible second half. We'll go first with Lisa B. Bonjour, Lisa. Comment ça va?
Bien. No, is that Italian?
That is French.
It is. Oh, good. Sure. Dit gaan lekker, dankie. Yeah, what a game, what a weekend, what a flipping second half. My goodness. So key things for me in that game was I don't know if people go back and watch at the beginning of the year, I was incredibly frustrated with our lineouts and with our mole defense. And no more. I mean, the books really showed, when they pulled together and they were just so on point. I really of course we can all wax lyrical, but that stopping of that mole which we've been struggling with for so long, and it just absolutely perfectly did that, and took away, I think the theme of this game was taking away everything that France kind of relies on. Usually, and really picked apart also, you know kind of or really focused on their weaknesses and did so absolutely excellently, with the high balls and really kind of tiring them out quite more than I actually expected that they would tire out. But yeah, just chef's kiss.
Seminkosi, riveting into the Saturday. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the game?
It was a good game. Like, we talk about how Rajsi is a genius, like a tactical mastermind, and I think this is one of the games where you actually kind of saw the tactics, where it seems like South Africa kind of were prepared for everything. Like, they knew that just absorb them, let them play, let them run around. They'll eventually get tired. Just absorb all the pressure. Try not to leak as many points. Well, we did in the first half, but from the second half, you could see that we let them attack, absorb, then counter attack. And I felt like it was a good game, especially like when I'm thinking about Andre Esterhuizen. It seems like we were testing something last week that actually applied this week. So I'm not sure, Rasi, tell us, how did you know that we're going to need Esther Hazen in such a position? Because it seems like you prepared last week exactly this type of situation.
Oh, all the innovation sort of worked out in this game. Jean, myself, and you did an immediate reaction podcast, which is not, as of recording, up yet on the Global Gainlines YouTube channel due to technical difficulties and super producer Lee's schedule. But considering what we covered on Sunday morning at 12:30 in the AM, um, now that you've had a chance to sort of digest the game and maybe watch some highlights or even watch the game over, I don't know how much time you had. What are your sort of broader thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I found it quite interesting this morning actually. I came across a interview with Siya, and apparently they discussed the possibility of a red card in the build up to the match because of the intensity and having learned from the previous two matches where in 2022 Pieter Steph Toy got a red card alongside Antoine Dupont, and then in 2023, 2023 it was Eben who got a yellow card, um, I believe, in the World Cup. So I think they purposefully like opened up the possibility, um, and discussed around it, like how are we gonna handle this. One thing I still can't wrap my head around is why Buan Venter got hooked. Like I'm not sure about that one. Like I checked the first three scrums earlier today, and I was like, I don't know the logic behind that one, but obviously it worked out. I'm sure there was some sort of logic. And I mean, we could see Dwayne whispering something to him as he came off. So there was definitely some form of some form of plan going on there. Um, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, in terms of the red card, it's not that I disagree with the color of the card. I just don't necessarily agree that it should have been a full red. I think a 20-minute red would have been sufficient. I know the memes are flying around, and South Africa is never a serious place. So apparently, we're going into the next match with 9 people on the bench and 14 people on the field. Um, but yeah, I honestly think a 20-minute red card would have sufficed. And then yeah, I'm just happy we're living in the era of Reinach. Like I'm so happy Reinach is hitting his stride, and he's getting that consistent game time. And you know, for a lot of us who knew what was brewing under the hood, it's nice to see it come good after so long spent in the ranks. You know, being the diligent understudy. I'm just very happy for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kobus Reinach
Rassie,
at 35 years old is really in his renaissance era. It's not just props that are maturing at this point. Go ahead, Lisa.
yeah, yeah. Rassie actually said something about Buan in the after the match interview.
Mhm.
He kind of just said, yeah, Buan came off because of the intensity of the match.
Mm.
So whether, they could see his on his monitor, the
Yeah.
little thing they have in their shirt, he was tiring out, or I don't know, but there was obviously something that they wanted in the scrums, I think a bit more oomph or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. But he also said in that interview that he gives credit to the guys who started, who kind of softened up, those were his words, softened up the French, in order for, as we know, the bench to then come in and kind of finish off the job. So I think it was more around that than anything, but it was very strange.
And we have to
I'm
give
not, I'm
credit
not, I'm not sure about that.
to his replacement, Gerard Steenkamp, because I mean there are many props within South African system. More recently, Stephen Kitsoff had to retire at Lucid. Steenkamp is a guy who's been toiling away. I'll bring up his stats a bit later in terms of his age and that type of thing. But he also did really well off the bench. So it speaks to our depth. But you can have depth, but you also need people to execute when they get onto the field. Go ahead, Temminkosi.
Oh, I was about to add, I think it was kind of like a tactical change because as soon as Bonfento went out, Steenkamp went in. That scrum that came directly after that led to the Reinach try. So I don't know, maybe Rassi saw something from like the coach's box that is like, okay, maybe Fenter is not, like Lisa was saying, doing whatever he needs to do correctly. And maybe putting Steenkamp there was a better choice because it seemed like it played out well. After he got on, then South Africa started changing, instead of kicking for the poles, then we started more like attacking. So maybe he saw something there.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
as it relates to the red card, having watched it a bit, and I think in the moment you hold your opinion a little, and then now 2 days later, I also feel that I expect more from Lot. He's very experienced. I know that Dan Newman joked that Lot is actually 28 instead of 30 because of how he's actually 30 years old, but Dan Newman says he's 28 because of how many times he's been injured for extended periods of time. So he's had time off. Lot's a player. Always extremely talented. I'm glad he's actually sort of blossoming now over the last couple of years. But I feel like he should have wrapped with the other arm, and then that would have likely have made it just a 20-minute yellow. And there's extenuating circumstances. Ramos is being tackled. He's sort of falling to the ground. Lord's a really big guy. Lord was maybe trying to go low and tackle a guy who is also much smaller than him. So all these things sort of factored in. So yeah, I would have also been much like the our prop getting suspended for extended periods of time, the Bulls prop and the South African prop. Yeah, and Hendrik Venter, all these extenuating circumstances, I don't mind them getting suspended, but maybe for a lesser time. It'd be interesting to see if Lord is actually suspended for this coming week's game as well.
Well,
Lisa B, do you have an opinion on that?
do I have an opinion on it? Yes, I have opinions. I have many opinions. Um, and yeah, very much like Jean, yes, a shoulder charge to the head should always be a red, whether it is intentional or not. It is dangerous and you know. So once again, not a problem with the red, but when they brought in the 20-minute red, there was kind of a campaign from World Rugby to say, okay, there is still the straight up permanent red for egregious things, for things that are, punching and biting and all of those kinds of things. So I just, it's very confusing for fans to then see something which was definitely not intentional. I'm sorry, but there's no way that Lewitt meant to do that. And then still give a permanent ban. And around intention is also if you look at the Wales game where forgotten his name, the Welsh player kicked towards Montoya's head. He looked behind him and he kicked with his tocs towards someone's face and head, intentionally and knowing what he does. That to me is way worse. And that, in a way, to say that is not what we want in our game, right? At all. Players that should not be part of the game at all. We're in a dynamic situation where Lewitt was, yes, the shoulder shouldn't go to the head, you should wrap, but it it's rugby. These things do happen, and we can't pretend that they don't.
But yeah, overall, I agree, by the way. But yeah, overall, the team showed a lot of character in the second half. A man down, everything against us. Jean, your thoughts on the character they showed in the second half?
Yeah, look, I think in essence, it wouldn't be surprising to me if Eben or one of the other guys stepped up in the changing room and said, "Listen, we need to win this. We are not losing Sia's 100th game." Um, and I mean, we saw Eben had a very touching post because they came through the Stormers together. They've at the Sharks together. They debuted, I think, within a couple of months of one another. So, and I know there's sort of the rugby bromance that everyone wants. So I think and Russie's got a way of getting I don't want to say upping the emotion because and it's a thing in sport where they say you don't win on emotion, but getting that emotional investment. And I think second half we came out with the idea of right, you showed us what your 90% looks like in terms of intensity. Now you better hold on because we're going to go to our 90% and we're going to stay there. And I really thought that was the difference. Is in the first half we were like we were trying to keep up with them, and the second half it was like a switch flipped and we came out and we said no, now you need to keep up with us. We're gonna play our way. We're not gonna do the smart clever thing of trying to outthink you. We are just going to play straight up 100% intensity, and you're going to have to keep up. And good luck with that. And the moment you could see, like the first 15, 20 minutes, they sort of were competitive. They were staying in contact. They were keeping us in a little bit. And then as soon as that first try came in from the maul, where I think it was we mauled twice and the ball went out wide. And I remember shouting some obscenities, and my father-in-law was reminding me that I had church in a couple of hours because Damien Penord was charging down a penalty kick, and then Angus Gardner, bless him, says to him, "You can't do that," and I'm shouting like, "No, he knows he can't do it. Card him, card him." So yeah, I think the character coming out in the second half was like, right, we've let you add your fun. You've played a little bit. We're gonna take the gloves off real quick, and then let's finish this. So yeah, I
Yep.
think it was immense from the team, and the way a lot of people describe it as we're winning games we shouldn't says a lot. And it doesn't mean that we don't deserve to win. It means that the game doesn't feel like it should have been ours to win, and we end up winning it. And that only character gets you that.
Yeah, well done to them. On the point of France, they're they put out sort of a mixed team. They're missing a couple of key players in the forwards and the backs to injury, but they showed a lot of character. I actually, like we said in the immediate reaction part, I see them being there and thereabouts for the World Cup. Still 2 years out. They're a worthy opponent, and that's what made this game like the game of the week for everybody to watch, not just the African and French fans. Much like the week prior when it was Ireland versus New Zealand in Chicago, who want sort of that parity. Next week, England versus Australia is the one sorry, England versus New Zealand is the one I'm sort of looking at. As it relates to Siya Kolisi, not being a Western Province fan at all, the time I got into rugby, Western Province weren't necessarily playing the style of rugby with the sort of characters that I enjoyed. Over the years, once I'd already become a Sharks fan, they started getting more interesting and exciting players like Hugh Aplon and Justin Colby, so on and so forth. But when Siya Kolisi broke through into the team alongside Sigabuze Noche, I was like almost envious of Western Province because they were getting these guys from the Eastern Cape who were like dynamic, strong, brought sort of excitement to the front row and that type of thing. And then when I remember distinctly watching the Springbok game when Siya Kolisi made his debut because he wasn't necessarily in the team and then he sort of got on the bench, but it's like he got on the bench mostly because like some people weren't available and that type of thing. Then famous bodybuilder, not that effective rugby player, Piers Piss, got hurt and Siya Kolisi came on at eighth man and played really, really well. And he wasn't necessarily in the team consistently from then onwards. It's only really under Alistair to a degree, and then very much under Rassie Erasmus that Siya Kolisi became the Siya Kolisi we see now. So yeah, I'm really stoked for him. Getting 100 caps is no joke. It's not an easy task to do. You have to play at a high level. There in South Africa, even if the team is not doing well, there's so many players to pick that the coach might swap things around and not see you within his game plan. Because we look at like even the eighth man position, we've got so many options in that position that former Babybok captain Pepsi Buthelezi can't even get into the team. And we're constantly talking every 2 weeks about is Evan Roos in the team or not in the team and that type of thing. So, yeah, Themikosi, your thoughts on Sia making 100 and hopefully even a few more?
I think the fact that he sacrificed for the team and got out like early in the second half, and you could see what he was doing on the bench. Like the camera just kept going into him, and he was there. I think at some point he was shouting at Shasha to do something. You could see the passion that this man is still, even though he is not on the field, he is still the team's captain and still giving the morale. So yeah, congrats to him.
I think they also need to manage him going into the World Cup. Father Time is undefeated. He's not the same player he was 8 years ago, like physiologically. So we're almost moving into a John Smith type situation where he's the best leader, but John Smith was far and away not the best hooker at the time. It was very much Bismarck du Plessis, even though Bismarck du Plessis was a walking penalty. We were just giving away penalties. He was feeling very generous. He was the Father Christmas of penalties, always at the wrong time. Bismarck du Plessis really hurts me because he's so talented, but he just couldn't get his mind right. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
And he tried to kill Dan Carter
Yeah. I wish he
with
succeeded.
a
Anyway,
textbook legal tackle.
yeah, illegal tackle in quotation marks if you're listening to this on the audio podcast. So yeah, let's see how we move forward with Sia. We're gonna like manage him properly. Strength and conditioning is a big thing now these days as well. So the coaching staff allows players to like, especially if you have such an emotional win, you can cut loose the Saturday evening, but then the next day you've got to really focus. And this is a big thing in football and rugby and every professional sport. First night, cut loose, have your fun or whatever. Try not to go to prison or something or get into jail, and then immediately next day it's recovery protocol. Why? Because like the Springboks set up and a lot of national teams have adopted this as well. If you can't train on Monday, you're not going to be in the match 23 in the next weekend. So yeah, before we move on from this very exciting game, we defeated the French. Lisa B, your favorite French pastry and or dish?
Oh my goodness, any French pastry. Like, I mean, they might not, we might have won them at rugby this weekend, but they are the world champions when it comes to pastries. But specifically, my best French meal or thing that I've ever eaten was actually at the foot of the Eiffel Tower. It was in the middle of winter and we went to the very top and it was flipping cold. And when we came down, we had a hot crepe or pannenkoek with Nutella on, and it's just, I nearly died. It was very good.
Same question to you, Demigosi.
I would have to go with like a creme brulee. Like I have a sweet tooth, like that custard with a little bit of that sugar. Oh, just to die for.
John, your turn.
Uh, it has to be the croissant.
All
Like
right.
at the office, they sell croissants with dark chocolate in them, and yeah, every time payday comes around, I end up getting a big fat cappuccino and one of those croissants, and then I just tasting chocolate the whole day. But yeah, I'm a sucker for a croissant.
Hey, you guys
Yeah,
are making me hungry. Now I
That was
can't.
last week. Wait until next week when we discuss the Italian dishes. Oh my God. But yeah, French dishes. Yeah. Almond croissant is quite a favorite of mine. Yeah, I quite enjoy that. Yeah, but the French right now, after being defeated by us, are enjoying pain au chocolat. Emphasis on the pain. Uh, Demikosi, now we move on to you. Your second team, your not so secret second team, New Zealand, defeated Scotland at the home of Scottish rugby, Murrayfield, breaking policeman Ben's heart, by the way. Um, Fantastic first half for you. Somewhat of an indifferent second half when the Scots came back. Shout out to Tom Jordan. Your thoughts on keeping the Grand Slam hopes alive?
I think they'll be happy that it's still alive. I don't want to lie. At some point, Scotland had me believing that they're gonna break this record. This is their chance, especially when it was a draw. But I think they started really well. Again, they had this thing where New Zealand switches off for a little bit, and that was like between the start of the second half, just before the last quarter. That part was really concerning. Like I think 3 tries got in like 10 minutes. That's during that space and time, so they should be concerned about that. But it was good to see a changed team, even though it was injury prone. Like it was good to see Josh Lord playing on the logs. Actually, it was. I think the only person I want to go from the squad right now, I want to see a team without Bowden Barrett for a while. I know we're praising Reinach now for being what 35. Bowden is like what 36 now. I'm thinking they need to start experimenting with that 10 position. Yes, Damien McKenzie did well off the bench, but is he the man to take you throughout the whole entire game? Not so sure. I think it's best as like a Grant Williams way. Get him off the bench, just the right amount of impact, and they go far with that. So yeah, like I said, mostly it was nice seeing a change in the team in the lineup. It was nice to see new people, seeing how the combination plays and see how that is going. The yellow cards costed them. The yellow card really costed them. That's when Scotland got back in the game. But I think I think Scotland would have won had who's this? I had Finn Russell been fit for the whole match. Because after I saw him getting strapped, I could see that he was no more playing at 100%. But it's a win. So I'm New Zealand right now are just happy with the win.
Nice to see Carl Steyn there. Carl Steyn, born in Johannesburg, made his name really at Griquas, was the Griquas captain for a bit. And then he's got a Scottish mom, so that's why he took his chances and moved over to Scotland. Scotland also missing a few key players. Yeah, Finn Russell's not necessarily the biggest fan of strength and conditioning. He doesn't look like a professional athlete at the best of times. Apparently, he's often seen at the pub. I have a particular dislike of Finn Russell because I once picked Scotland to beat Italy in Super Blue, and I really needed the points. And then Finn Russell, I watched the game attentively, obviously, and then Finn Russell proceeded to just languid through the game. So, Jean, your thoughts on Scotland falling short against New Zealand?
Yeah, look, I was impressed by their defense. They were relatively solid in defense. And for the most part, they kept New Zealand well contained. Um, However, I think New Zealand played a pretty clever card targeting Finn Russell. Um, I can't remember offhand if there was any late hits. I know a fly off is always bound to get one or two late hits. But yeah, I did notice at least one instance after a kick pass. They kept him on the ground up until the next phase had carried. And the guy was the New Zealander. I think I'm speaking under correction. I think it was Satiti. Just like literally just lay splayed on top of him and kept looking out the corner of his eye. And when he saw the forwards were carrying and the ref was starting to look back, he sort of got up and got off him. But this was long after the strapping. So yeah, I think um, it might be an area where Scotland needs to develop a backup 10 a bit. Even if it's not for every game, but much in the words of our genius and mastermind, you don't want someone playing against France, Italy, New Zealand for the first time in a World Cup when the pressure's on. Um, and then yeah, just I really think if Scotland had been a bit fitter, um, and had maybe worked out one or two bespoke moves to targeting the All Blacks, then it might be a different story. But I have to give credit to New Zealand. They have much improved their aerial game from when they were playing against us. They've stepped up their aerial game a lot, and Scotland's box kicking tactics just didn't pay off, and I don't think they had a backup to fall back on.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jack Dempsey there, who's actually capped by both Australia and Scotland. Always actually a very good player, to be honest. Bleu that could be a fly-off option if Finn Russell's not available. I would obviously be partial to them picking New Zealand board Tom Jordan at fly-off. Very, very good player at inside. Is the New Zealand slash Scottish version of Damien Willemse, if there was such a thing. Jamie Dobby made an impact off the bench. Rory Dodge off the bench also did quite well. So they did have some impact off the bench. Josh Bayliss, not so much. Marshall Sykes does what he can. George Turner, solid player. Piers Kuman, I would have liked him to carry the ball a bit more, maybe. Ewan Ashman did okay, got a try. Interestingly enough, the Glasgow guy who always gets tries was not Hooker is not in the team. That's interesting. Hutchinson, I don't know that much about. On the New Zealand side, I would highlight Peter Lakai. Put in a good shift. Didn't even get sub, play the whole game. Obviously, Cam Roigard had a solid one again. Another player played the entire game. How Bowden Barrett played the whole game, I'm not entirely sure. He also got a few knocks here and there. Caleb Clark, somebody that big, is like New Zealand version of Stravino Jacobs. It's so big and it's so explosive. And then Leicester Nuku looks right at home. You can see why Razor was so desperate to get him back into the New Zealand system. Obviously, they had quite a good relationship. Leicester Nuku having played for the Crusaders under Razor. Billy Proctor did okay off the bench. Lisa B, your thoughts on New Zealand rolling on once again?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Caleb Clark there, and the interesting thing for me, also, as Jean was saying, is the Scottish defense. And just by the way, there were 5 players that got 2 dominant tackles each. 3 of them were Scottish, Ben White, Ewan Ashman, and Matt Ferguson, and 2 were Caleb Clark, Fabian Holland from New Zealand. So that just kind of, these stats are never cut and dried, but it does give you an idea of who was
Yeah.
tackling and kind of how they were tackling. The one thing about New Zealand that was a bit strange to me was the scrum, and they didn't kind of manage to take advantage of what one would think or what is one of their strengths and one of Scotland's weaknesses. Um, and so that was quite weird. Even you mentioned Skuman. Yes, he doesn't carry the ball, but Scotland won. They only had three scrums, but they won all of them.
Mhm.
And yeah, New Zealand has 88% for their scrums. So that was quite strange to me. But yeah, I enjoyed DMAC at the end. He looked very rugged in his with his bandaged head, but he was really good.
Yeah,
Very,
I
very.
think what's interesting there, Lisa, is and you're sort of touching on it on New Zealand not capitalizing on their forwards. I'm quite surprised by how their maul defense has regressed. I
Yeah,
mean, Scotland really pushed them in the mauls, and Scotland is not a team you associate with big bruising forwards, but I mean, I always say if I see the New Zealand maul going backwards, I'm like the forward coach, what do they call him? Shrek. I think it's Ryan Crotty
yeah.
is up there busy smashing something, right? So it's always interesting to me because we managed to get a couple of mauls going, and despite their dark art shenanigans, got over the line. But then I was watching Scotland, and I was like, how is Scotland pushing you guys back? Like
Yeah,
you guys
it was
were
strange.
a year or two ago, you were stopping us cold, and everyone's always speaks about the Springbok Mall. And I was like, you guys stopped us cold, and now it's like Scotland's pushing you over. So yeah, it's interesting that there's not that reliance on a pretty competent forward back from New Zealand.
I'm thinking it might be a cohesion issue because they've been chopping and changing. Like you said, Peter Lakai, I think this is like his second game where he played. I think this might even be his first where he played like the whole match. There was a new lock. The reason they're having that new lock is because Scott is not there. Fabian is not. It's not like a seasoned pro. He's also relatively new. Along, I think when you put all of those together, especially in the forwards, maybe that's why it was kind of like subpar.
Yeah, I can see the look. The reality is that if by some miracle Scotland win the World Cup, that's the only way Cricket Townsend keeps his job. So it's definitely Franco Smith there. Franco Smith didn't stay in Scotland for nothing. And on the New Zealand point, it's Jason Ryan that's the forward
Oh,
coach. Yeah,
Jason Ryan,
yeah.
sorry.
Ryan Crotty's the former inside/outside center. But you got one of the names wrong. It's just like the other way around.
Yes. Yeah, the other thing that's sort of scary about New Zealand is the indiscipline. Three yellow
Mm.
cards.
Yeah. They let
And
the Scotland's back into the game really in the second half,
Mm.
due to that, and Scotland really coming out very focused. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because
And
I
I
was like shocked by that trip tackle. I was like, in what world are you thinking I'm gonna get away with this one?
Yeah, let me just. No one's gonna notice. Oops.
They're never gonna
but
know.
They were
but did
watching
you
they were
notice
watching
that?
the Sharks in the URC. They were like, if they can do it, we can do it. No, you
But have
can't.
you noticed like there were a lot of moments like that throughout the whole entire match because there was some at some point where I don't remember who it was where he was on the ground, the ball kept moving, but someone kept holding him to the ground, just pulling him.
Oh,
I think there were a lot of dark out moments. Like a lot of people didn't notice that.
yeah, I think I know the incident you're speaking about because I was sitting here, I was watching it was one of the New Zealand backs. He gets tackled, then he rolls twice more, and I'm going like, any second now, it's called a whistle. You blow it for double movement,
Mm.
and the ref is just like, play. I'm like, no, he gained 5 meters by rolling over.
Yeah, the lack of experience in terms of the locks did affect the game because Lord liked him because he said Lord, Fabian Holland, and Sam Barry aren't like. So that's a concern because you want to mix youth with experience there. Look, these guys are big, and shout out to Lord for actually being quite smart in terms of like pretending just to man the ruck and then grab the ball with one hand and then run and then drawing in the two defenders before throwing the
Yeah.
ball to Roygaard. So the skills in New Zealand are very good. New Zealand for that 8 year period when they were completely dominant, it was because they married brutality with incredible technique and understanding the rules as well. Like when we tried to sort of we had a maul on our own line and we tried to then grab a kick the ball from the goal area, and the New Zealand player just pointed and said like to the ref, "You can't do that." And then the South African player was like, "Oh yeah, you can't do that," because before Rassie came around, we were often trying to play stump car, sort of I'm bigger than you, going to brute force
Yeah.
rugby. Whereas Rassie's such a tactical mastermind that he explained to these players like, if you actually want to win stuff at test level, you better play with your brain and your heart and your body. Because if you don't bring all
Yeah.
three of those things, especially New Zealand, are going to outdo you.
Yeah. Rugby is
Right.
100% chess and wrestling combined.
Yeah. That's I've been saying this for years. That's why I really enjoy it because it's so tactical and it used to be just the fly offs and the scrum offs that made decisions. Now everybody on the field of play needs to make decisions. And the fact that the bench has become so vital as well, because the bench used to be an afterthought. People used to sulk when they were on the bench. Now you want to be on the bench because it's especially in professional sport, in football, in basketball, in rugby, it's really it's good to be in the team, but it's really more important that if everybody's fit, who the coach picks for the last period of the game, because that's who we really trust. Because generally, in all these sports, that's where the game is on the line. And speaking of game on the line, the surprise of the weekend, Max Jorgensen goes down to Italy in Italy. Lisa B, your thoughts?
Oh my goodness. Look, I had an idea that this was the way that it would go. Of course, I was still backing Australia, but um, we saw just, I think the thing that carrying through from what we saw at the beginning of the year when Italy was here is just the systems and the composure that they now have. They have a certain um they have a belief in this themselves, and they don't get flustered like they used to. Um, and so you can see this, and I know everyone says it every year, watch out for them in the Six Nations. But I really think they are going from strength to strength. Of course, the URC, I think, is very much a part of that. Um, but yeah, I was impressed with how Italy controlled the game. And on Australia's side, I just think they're tired. Like they have had a very long year. If you think about the Lions going over there and a very, very tough rugby championship. So I think they just they're running out of steam, and it's disappointing because through the rugby championship, we kind of got that idea that there was some resurgence, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if they can at least maintain to a certain degree for a while, because they are going to get their new coach and all of that. So I don't know, are they learning from this experience? If they can carry it through, it might be worth a while. But yeah, I'm sorry for the Aussies, man.
Then, Mikosi, briefly, your thoughts on the Australia losing to Italy in Italy?
I think Australia, Italy played really well. The the lock, I think the number 4, the number 9 and 11, oh, those three were just outstanding throughout the whole entire match. They really brought in the power. But like Lisa said, I think they're tired. And the fact that Australia is chopping and changing backline, also not by choice, I think it's a matter of combinations because something did not connect that whole entire match. Yes, there were few people playing individual brilliance, but as a whole, I did not see them.
Yeah. Jean, we play Italy next week. So this actually sets it up quite nicely because, I mean, we're coming off an emotional roller coaster and they just got a really good win.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good match, and we can expect some more of that breakdown intensity. Um, Be interesting to see because a couple of their key players weren't on the tour earlier this year. But yeah, they've definitely got some big physical units, and their coach has definitely turned them into a side that physically is much more contesting, especially at the breakdown. Um, while their scrum and their lineout may not be the most formidable weapons they have, definitely believe that Capuzzo is dangerous. He has just an incredible knack. He's sort of like Italy's version of Apelele Fassi. Incredible runs, able to find the smallest gap and just slice you open. They've got wonderful centers. Um, I think it's Menangelo and Brix are the two
Yeah,
centers.
yeah.
And they've absolutely Brix is devastating. We saw on the weekend what he could do to Australia, and the Australian centers themselves aren't shy of physicality. So yeah, it's definitely not a game we can sleep on. And I'm hoping for a good match. I'm really just hoping for a good match. And yeah, Italy is always my little home in the Six Nations. I just get drawn to Italy. Maybe it's the pasta, um, the carbo loading for the long runs. But yeah, I think Italy is definitely slowly stepping up their game. I think what will determine how far this goes is can they keep finding um, can they keep finding biggish guys to start playing forwards for them, and if they can get one or two proper front row units, then we could see some serious scrum power, and that will just enable them to go another step up.
Yeah. We'll look briefly at all the results of this weekend. Some of the more notable ones. Ireland defeated Japan, but I didn't watch the game. But all the feedback I'm getting from the Irish friends of mine are not good. So we'll see how that pans out, considering we're playing this Irish team in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah,
And then the
they'd
other
want
game.
to figure out their lineouts before then, I think.
Ah, true.
They might also want
Yeah.
to choose a 10 after 2 years of indecision. Hint,
Oh,
it's not going to be the
poor
guy
Sam
from
Pendergrass
Leinster.
is wafer thin. Um, oh yeah, England Fiji. I'd hoped this would be more competitive, but unfortunately, it wasn't to the degree that I'd hoped. And obviously, the big one was Colombia Mexico. Everybody watched that one, right? Everyone. So before we move on, if you're enjoying the podcast
What
so far.
what about Namibia? How are we just moving past Namibia?
Oh yeah, I
I
didn't even.
know.
I completely forgot.
Oh, shocking.
This is our eighth province. Lisa B, you know the result of that game. What happened?
I do know the result. Oh, man, I was actually hoping no one would bring it up because Namibia lost. Spoiler alert.
Oh,
Um,
Demikosi.
They
I
started
was,
badly.
yeah, they did. The Black Devils scored, I think it was the first minute and a half. And well done for Belgium. They look like a reasonable team. I don't think they'll win Samoa, but yeah, I was really hoping for more from Namibia. Namibia just looked disorganized. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it. I'm so sad. And with that, they pretty much played themselves then out of going to the World Cup, which is really bad for them because the funding then goes away. They don't have a sevens program of note, so they're not getting like Olympic funding.
Hmm.
So I'm really, really actually worried about Namibian rugby as a whole.
Yeah. Interesting enough, Torsten van Jaarsveld, former Cheetah, he's still playing. How old is this guy? John Dacel, former Sharks outside center, he's also still playing. So Namibia really milking their veterans there. Yeah, before I was so interrupted, if you're liking the podcast so far, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and get into the comments. Before we move on to previewing this coming weekend's games, we've also got a very exciting development this weekend. It's the Women's Seven Series in the capital of Kenya, Nairobi. South Africa, very much the favorites, with the Kenyans hosts being second favorites. South Africa in a team with sorry, in a pool with Zimbabwe and Mauritius. Kenya in Pool B, favorites in Pool B against Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Pool C is Uganda, Zambia, and Burkina Faso. And Pool D is, if I can see this very small font, Madagascar, Tunisia, and Egypt. So starts on Saturday and it runs through, finishes on Sunday. That's the 15th, 16th of November. Lisa B, how many? What do you? What are you? What are you gonna want from this tournament? And will we see any of the players we saw in the World Cup a few weeks ago?
Yes. What do I want? We have to win. We have won this tournament from 2006, I believe. Until recently, we've won every year that it was played, except for 2012 when Tunisia won, and in 2018 Kenya won. So we are the African Queens. We need to win this, especially because of what Kenya did to us earlier in the year. In LA, we were all set to go to the next level of the HSBC Sevens tournament, which World Rugby changed just before, but let's not get into that. And then Kenya beat us and they took us our place. And so it is time for revenge. Unfortunately, they will have the home ground advantage, but we have a very strong team. You're absolutely right. We've got some 15 players in the 18-player squad who are in Pretoria as we speak. We will, and 12 of them will travel to Kenya. So people will remember Nadine Ruiz. We have got Bayandre Dolph, who is actually not so much of a sevens player recently, but it's good to see her there. And then we have Faith Tsauke, Zinhle Mapupa, and Lerato Makua. All of those were at the 15s, the World Cup earlier this year. And then also someone to watch out for is Lee Fortuyn, very young player. She debuted last year at this very tournament. She's young. She is incredibly fast and really good. She was also at the 15s Africa tournament earlier this year instead of the main team going. If people remember, we kind of sent a B team and she was part of that. So she is in the training squad, and I'm pretty sure she will go. So that is someone, yeah, young and very exciting to look out for. Oh,
And the games are
Ayanda
free on
Malinga
YouTube.
too. Sorry.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to shout out all the prominent players because the YouTube algorithm picks that up, and then then we get more views. So we'll just say like who's popular these days? I don't know. I don't keep track of we'll just keep saying Sasha Feinberg and Gomez Zulu, and then the algorithm will help us out. Looking forward
Antoine
to
Dupont.
yeah, Dupont didn't make it this week. Would have been
Yeah.
fun to see him in the mix though. So let's see who France is taking on this week. So this week's forward fixtures. Quickly, we've got Jean's thoughts on this already. Demikosi, Italy versus South Africa at the Allianz. Oh no, at the
You
stadium
know,
in Italy, not the
let
Allianz.
me, after the performance
How
that they
many?
just had, I'm gonna go with Italy.
I think you're
Joking.
just making it spicy. It's also going to be super interesting to see who they pick. I think that's what we need to unpack in this game. I want, there's already speculation Hooker's coming back and Pollard's coming back. I wanted them to do that because the players, much of the same team play 2 games now. I want them to rotate the squad, not just for physical fatigue, but also mental fatigue and emotional fatigue. It was Sia's 100. It was a dramatic game. We won against the odds. It was in a, by the way, incredible stadium. Will we see Lord come back? Even if Lord isn't suspended, maybe play him off the bench, that type of thing. Again, like I said on the live stream, the live reaction immediately after the game, myself and Jean. It's weird for me to see Lord Yaga on the TV because he's the spitting image of a good friend of mine, Basil Nevo. They're like doppelgangers. Although Basil's not as tall as Lord, but nobody's as tall as Lord. Lisa B, who's your money on?
I'm gonna go for South Africa.
Any players you'd like to see that weren't involved this week, and next week?
Yo, I actually haven't thought about it, but as you say, I think actually Hooker would be a very, very good person to bring in again because just because of his physicality and also speed, and that's what we saw from the Italian back line. So yeah, maybe, and I don't know, KLA maybe didn't look so yeah dynamic as Hooker would be against the Italians.
Yeah, it's good to rotate. Now we move on to my pick for like game of the week. A resurgent England. We haven't lost in quite some time against a very robust win against the odds, even when things don't go exactly their way. New Zealand. Jean, who are you picking here? The Poms or the Kiwis?
This is a tight one to call, eh? This is really a difficult one to call. England have been really, really immense in the last couple of games. I was watching their rush defense. Their rush defense is fast, it's in your face, it's aggressive. Um, New Zealand traditionally struggles a bit with the rush defense. Um, and it comes down to instinct because I think for New Zealand the instinct is to pass the ball. So if they can't pass, they struggle. They typically don't go for crossfield kicks. They don't go for kick passes. They tend to kick deep, and then counterattack off your return kick. If England plays this right, they could pull a 2017 South Africa on New Zealand and edge it out by just denying them attacking opportunity. And England have become, I don't want to say good at discipline, but relatively better at discipline. Um, so in comparison to New Zealand, they're not getting 3 yellows in a game. Um, three for the price of one banana special. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be an electric match, right? I think it's going to be an electric match because England is probably no one can call them a dark horse at the next World Cup. They are arguably building towards something big. There's a whole 3-part series on YouTube that someone has made going into depth. It's about 3.5, close to 4 hours of detailed, in-depth analysis on the attack, the defense, everything. And I've managed to watch about a third of it, and then I got lost and I had to start over. But yeah, yes, it's so tight to call. I actually don't even want to call it. I just want to be excited by the result.
Yeah, looking forward to the game. Lisa B, you've made your thoughts very clear over the last few weeks that you feel that Henry Pollack is just a poor man's Evan Roos. So I suspect you're picking New Zealand?
Yes, I will never, ever, ever pick England, even if they're playing against France. Um, so yes, New Zealand for me. I, I have also been impressed by England playing. They're playing recently, but um, you know, if the let's put it like this, if the real New Zealand shows up, they're winning, even in England. There is still a little bit of, shall we say, plastic energy for me around England, but they are definitely getting better. So it's going to be a Titanic match. It's going to be huge.
Then we go see New Zealand winning by 20 points or 30 points?
It's a tough call. It's a tough call. I honestly think that, like John was saying, if England can stop New Zealand from like attacking, like just getting the launch, I think they can stifle the whole game and just kind of like absorb that whole pressure. And maybe because when New Zealand is not attacking, they kind of look like they don't know what they should be doing now. It's like when things are not going their way, they're kind of like, oh, what are we supposed to do now? How do we play this? So considering that and how England have been playing the last couple of games. I think this is like their ninth win in a row. Is it ninth? I think it
Mhm.
might be ninth, somewhere around about there. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure. But like I never there's never in sports, there's never any reason why you should support England when they're playing in I don't care what sport it is. There's just never a good reason. I think it's because they like saying it's coming home, it's coming home. It's annoying. And I think that's why I'm not gonna support them.
Interestingly enough, the South African game being played at the Juventus football home ground, beautiful, beautiful stadium. We won't mention the sponsor. Kicks off at 20 to 3. So I'm just mentioning that on the pod in case people just assume all our games start at 5 and or later, and then you get home from the shopping and you realize the game's already on. So you missed the first half. And then this game, England versus New Zealand, is very much the highlight of the week. And it kicks off at 10 past 5 in the afternoon, South African time. And then the game of significance, but maybe we'll keep an eye on, not as interesting as England versus New Zealand, Ireland versus Australia. And that's interesting to see, as we mentioned, Australia look a little tired. However, considering Ireland's our opponent after Italy, and we don't want to look too far ahead, our game will be done by then already, so we can really start scouting Ireland after having played Italy as supporters, that is. I'm sure the coaching staff are scouting everybody consistently. Ireland versus England at in Dublin. Both teams sort of hit and miss of late. So, Jean, are you going to be keeping an eye on this one?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be a good match to sink your teeth into. Ireland being very much a team of grinding you down with the same consistent system. And I heard someone describe it as if you had to distill Ireland down to one key aspect, it's ruck speed. Like for them, it's absolutely playing at a insanely fast speed as consistently as possible. Um, Australia, yeah, I don't know. I tend to agree with what Lisa said. Is I think their players are fatigued. It in a way, I think it would have been accepted even if they brought a bunch of youngsters on board and they said, look, we're not going to go for a grand slam or chasing wins or anything. We're just going to go out and get experience. Guys like Tane Edmade, who's got a lot of raw potential but need time in the pressure cooker just a little bit. I mean, if you brought out an experimental 15 or experimental 23 just to get through the tours and get the experience similar to last year, not banking on any wins, I think large part you'd have got some leeway with the Australian fan base because they would see it for what it is as building depth and finding so that when a guy like Harry Wilson gets injured or McWright or Valentini is not available, you've got a second where there's not that drop in quality. For Ireland, I don't know. The Australian scrum looked pretty solid against us. If they're not up to it, the Australians will punish them. So maybe if Joe Schmidt, they're playing on his foundations, he might just decide to put the key in the lock and give Australia an upset win.
Yeah, and Ireland haven't looked great, but they're still very much the favorites going into this game. Australia, weirdly, last season in November when they went on tour, because it was going from that tour, and then the next year it's going to be the Lions tour, and they weren't very good leading up to that November tour. They almost played, and the November Test series actually improved, and they ran Ireland very close in the final game of that November tour. That then gave people hope of like, oh, maybe the Lions series will actually be competitive. Maybe it's worth tuning in for. Uh, and then they kind of made the Lions series competitive to a degree. It was at least entertaining to a certain degree, but now they seem a bit like their energy physically and mentally is not quite there. It look like they want to go on holiday for a bit and then get into Super Rugby pre-season so that Temi Nkosi and his friends can analyze them in February of next year. Speaking of Temi Nkosi, were you picking in this game, Ireland or Australia?
I think had Australia played better yesterday, I would have went with. I mean, the day before, I would have went with Australia. But from their form plus everything that you guys are mentioning now, also that Jake Gordon was playing 10 last week, and the week before that he was playing 9, shows that there's a lot going on in Australia. So I'm just gonna go with Ireland for now. Actually, I don't want Ireland to win, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Ireland.
Yeah, you could not want a result, but you could say it's the most likely outcome. Lisa B,
Both teams to
finally.
lose.
Yeah, yeah. Draw, a draw.
So, yeah. Yeah. As much as it pains me to say it, Ireland probably, even with the line out disorganization we saw and that kind of stuff this past weekend, I think Ireland will still, they just have the brute power and they are gaining momentum to some degree. So, sorry, Aussies. I hope
Yeah,
it's Aussie.
interesting that Ireland actually started Crowley and Casey. I'm a big fan of Casey. I think Casey's a really good player. He's just behind Jamison Gibson Park, and despite his age, is still playing at a high level. That brings us to the end of the show this week. If you got to the end of the podcast, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell. Yeah, and get in the comments. Tell us what your favorite French pastry is, and tune in next week when we discuss the review of the Italian game and what our favorite Italian dishes are. And because it's Italy, you can pick more than one. So until next week, from myself, Sean, Lisa B, and Demikosi, in Rasi, we trust.